Good evening, everyone. Go ahead and call the regular meeting of April the 16th to order. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Commissioner Eford, would you lead us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please bow with me, please. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we humbly come before you, thanking you for this day. Lord, I pray for all those that were affected yesterday by the storm damage. I pray for our utility workers. Lord, I pray for our police, our fire, our EMS, Lord, for putting their lives on the line to help, protect, and to serve. Lord, I pray for strength and wisdom as we conduct the business of the county. Lord, I pray for our military and their families for the sacrifices they make daily. And I pray, Lord, continue to bless us. These things I ask in your precious name I pray. Amen. Please.
Is anyone from GHA here present? Okay. Commissioners, I would ask if we could amend the agenda and maybe move item 1 down to item 6 and just move everything else up 1. That's okay. I think maybe some folks are running late.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Swain, and second from Vice Chairman McIntyre. All in favor of that, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 1 will be NCDOT Highway Maintenance Improvement Plan presentation. Presenter, Brett Knight. Good evening, Brett.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. I'll try to get this presentation pulled up really quick. Okay. Screen went out. It's back. So my name is Brett Knipe. I am with the North Carolina Department of Transportation. I'm the Deputy Division Engineer for Division 10, which is a 5-county area that does include Stanly County. It's actually Stanly, Cabarrus, Mecklenburg, Union, and Anson. And so we've got a pretty nice level of diversity amongst our counties with rural and urban. Our division headquarters are actually located right here, so we've got a pretty big presence actually in Stanly County. But myself and Tim Anderson, who is our division maintenance engineer, we came out tonight. We wanted to talk with you guys a little bit about what our maintenance and operations programming and planning really looks like. A little bit more detailed than we generally get into in trying to explain how this system works. But we'll go over a few things. I want to introduce the team, just Tim and I. Many of you may know our division engineer, Scott Cole. Our offices are located just up the street from you, near NC 52 and 73. We've got, we're going to go over how many lane miles we take care of, the bridges we take care of, the various funding activities that we're engaged in. Some of our monies are allocated and broken up into different pots: roadway, bridge, roadside environmental work, and some of those funding pots are very prescriptive and allocated down all the way up to, I should say, the General Assembly level, and others are left to more of our discretion. And resurfacing, which is probably one of the larger programs that you guys probably see go on each summer. Contractors come in, start paving roads. sometimes, we starts generating some phone calls for us if folks don't like what they see. But all in all, it's a great program. We've seen an uptick in that in the last couple of years. But again, like I said, our offices are located right up the street. We've got a very large complex near Coble Avenue and 2427. We've got our entire division bridge maintenance office is located there. Roadside environmental, which is everything involves, as the name would say or tell, our grass mowing, the trimming back trees, litter removal. Those have come to be really hot topics here of late. Traffic services, which is our group that takes care of, signs, signals, interfaces with the developer community in terms of traffic studies. All that's located right here in Stanley County for, a pretty big area. And then what may be most important is our Stanley County Maintenance Office. Tim will go over that in a little more detail and talk about our county maintenance engineer and how she takes care of the roads and how we're available to hear, concerns about roadway conditions, what improvement suggestions, we're totally open for that. And also of course, we got our equipment shop, which, takes care of a pretty sizable fleet of equipment. But that said, I want to let Tim take over and talk to you a little bit more about our HMIP. And good.
Good evening. I'm Tim Anderson. I'm the Division Maintenance Engineer for Division 10, and I want to talk to you a little bit about our maintenance operations and our HMIP program and a new program called RMIP. Just kind of an overview. NCDOT maintains quite a bit of assets in Stanley County. We've got 845 centerline roadway miles, 126 miles of that's primary, 689 paved secondary, 30 miles of unpaved roads still. And our lane mile total is 1,698 miles. So we have quite a bit of multi-lane road as well. 111 bridges, 34 large culverts, 28 large pipes, and 251 pipes that are not considered on our nationwide bridge inventory, but are much larger than what maintenance forces operate on. So our bridge maintenance department takes care of those. Just a couple of little notes. Our longest bridge in the county is 1,150 feet. It's on 2427 over Lake Tillery. And the shortest is 18 feet over a branch of Mountain Creek on Stony Hill Road. So got a pretty wide range of routes we take care of and bridges. We have 48 traffic signals, 26 flashing indicators at intersections, about 8,400 signs, which so quite a few of our traffic services folks take care of those. 163 total plant beds in the county. That includes street trees, and then 1,700 miles of shoulder and ditches. And we mow the 1,700 miles of shoulders multiple times a year. So I'll talk a little bit about our highway maintenance funding. Over kind of a brief history, from 2015 to 2017, we've been averaging about $3.15 million for the county in maintenance allocations. This last year, there was a change in funding. We'll talk about it in a little bit. It's called RMIP. And with that, we saw a supplemental allocation. So the total allocation for Stanley County was $6.3 million in maintenance funds for roadway maintenance. And then similarly in bridge, our funding level from 2015 to 17 was about $720,000, and that jumped to $1.47 million this year. So to explain what that kind of is about would be our road maintenance improvement program. The RMIP, it's a new program that's been developed. It's a multi-year work plan based on life cycles of assets. And we look at things like striping, shoulder signs, curb and gutter pipes, ditches, mowing, vegetation management, litter removal. Some of these things we directly affect. Some of them we're just, we're treating a symptom. Litter, we're treating a symptom. But we spend a lot of time and funds on that in every county in our division. So the way a life cycle is determined with an asset, we take the inventory We divide it by the life cycle of that asset, and that gives us our goal for the year. For example, with shoulder miles, if you're an 8-year cycle and you divide the total number of shoulder miles by that, and that gives us a goal for the year to work on. Our work locations are determined by our county maintenance engineer and their staff, and that's either local knowledge of what's going on, citizen request, local leader input, programmatic need. You know, that's tying our shoulder work in conjunction with our resurfacing, so that in our striping, so that we're not striping a road and then coming back and paving it a year later, making sure that we're getting the most out of the funds that we're allocated to the county. Work plan is executed by field maintenance forces and contractors. We have we rely on contractors for a lot of work in every county. Some work they're more specialized at, and some work we're more specialized at. So we try to make sure that we're putting the contractors to doing the things they're great at and keeping our guys doing the things that we're great at, so that we get the most value out of our dollar. And then we have our unplanned work, which is, we've got our RMIP plans, but that doesn't cover, hazardous trees, phone calls about a pothole or a low shoulder, or even gravel at a mailbox, things that come up over time. And we work those in as those calls come into our office. Site distance is another thing we get a call about on a regular basis. So our RMIP plan, after we set our goal, the legislature actually funded our entire goal, and that's why we saw the bump. We initially planned for a smaller amount. We had a target that was lower. The legislature came in and asked us to produce the entire list of projects we were going to do and funded us at that level. So we're currently underway with that, which is a pretty dramatic swing at roadway maintenance issues like pipe replacement, shoulder work, and we've replaced quite a few pipes this year. You've probably seen the lane closures around from time to time, which is a lot more aggressive than we had been in the past. So along the lines of working with our RMIP is our resurfacing and preservation program, which ties into HMIP. Our resurfacing funding, just kind of an overview, 2016 to 2019, we've been averaging about 2.98, so basically $3 million a year in Stanley County. In resurfacing funds, our preservation funds, which cover other treatments like chip seals, slurry seals, full depth reclamations, and crack sealing on occasion, we've been averaging about $1.62 million a year for that. So our total average refunding and preservation dollars are $4.6 million a year for Stanley. And I wanted to show you kind of the paving trends, the condition trends. Every year, we have a contractor, so it's an unaffiliated, unbiased third party, rides our routes, and they look at the number of cracks over the stretch of the road, and they ride every road in the county. They look for cracks, the amount of patching on the road, the amount of deformation from rutting in the wheel path, things like that. And all that's put into our pavement condition survey data or our forms, and it spits out a number. It gives us a pavement condition rating, so our PCR. And it goes from 0 to 100. 100 is a perfect road, freshly paved, maybe just a couple years old, and 0 is a road that needs a lot of attention. So I pulled the Division 10 trends, and that's part of this. And you can see our average is steadily climbing up, and we had actually reached a peak in 2012 or 2010 of 82.7, and we slid back just a little bit as a division to 81.7. But with the introduction of the HMIP program, we should see those numbers to continue to trend back up. And then looking at Stanley County's pavement condition trends, from 2000 it was a 76.4, and it's pretty much been a steady climb. And in 2016, it was sitting at 85.8 for an average score across the county. So that's taking into account all roads. And one of the things we look at is the percentage of good, fair, and poor. And the note on there, poor condition is 0 to a 59. So that's a road that needs quite a bit of work. Fair condition is a road that's going to be a good candidate for preservation. we can catch it before it gets to that point and bring it back up to a better level of service. And those are from 60 to 79. And then a good rating is from 80 to 100. So in Stanley County, the number of poor lane miles out of the 845 is about 91 lane miles, which equates to roughly 45 roadway miles. And that number has been trending in a good direction as well. I want to jump in. I've got the definition that was supplied from our folks in Raleigh about HMIP. HMIP is a program, it's called our Highway Maintenance Improvement Program. It is specifically a resurfacing program that was developed to ensure that we're paving the right roads at the right time so that we're not having to catch a road after it's gone really far and spend a tremendous amount of money on it. If we can pave them earlier, then we don't spend as much money patching, which means we can pave more roads. So HMIP by definition is a list of resurfacing, rehabilitation, and pavement preservation projects identified for each division over a 5-year period. Our county maintenance engineers ride the roads with their staff, the road maintenance supervisors, and then us as well. And we take notes, phone calls from folks about various roads, and we develop a plan based on a projected allocation. That plan will have our resurfacing routes and our preservation routes developed in it for each year. And we have, at the end, each year, when we know our allocation, we either adjust it up or down. Typically, we've been adjusting, adding more roads to it. So as we have a plan and we see what our costs come in at for various contracts and what our allocations are, we're able to add roads to that plan. We typically reach to the next year in that HMIP and try to get those routes, but if something has come up in the meantime that needs to be addressed due to, development or something like that coming in and the road deteriorating quickly, then we can move those routes in. We have local input in that. It's not a lockdown program. So, last year, $503 million was allocated for contractor resurfacing and $100 million for pavement preservation. And then our divisions get those, and it's based on partially our lane mileage and then how our pavement needs, what our pavement needs are. So if a division has really poor pavement scores, they may see a little more of those resurfacing dollars to try to get them up to a level of service that's equivalent to the rest of the state. So, it's all looked at on a statewide level from the allocation standpoint. With us, we have the lane mileage. We have a tremendous amount of lane mileage in this division, so we see a pretty substantial allocation. So I wanted to take a moment and show you what has been planned, what work's been planned for the future and what work has been done since 2016 that's either completed or tied up in a contract. So the Stanley County HMIP, the items in green are either complete or tied up in a contract and ready to be completed, depending on the contractor's speed at delivery. And then the 2019 through 2023 is our next 5 years, our projection. And that's those routes are basically locked in. We'll add routes to that as needed. So you can see we're covering a lot of ground with our resurfacing program. And that does include our preservation routes as well. So with that, I wanted to provide you some contact information. Our county maintenance engineer is Raynette Davis, and she's been a county maintenance engineer for quite a while. Has a good operation running here in Stanley County. The road maintenance supervisors who plan the day-to-day operations for the maintenance crews are Stephen Mabry and Steve Lee, and I'm the division maintenance engineer. You're more than welcome to reach out to any of us if you have a concern or a need or a question about something you see going on or anything programmed. And that concludes my slides. Any
Thank you,
questions?
Mr. Anderson.
Yes, sir.
Board members, do we have any questions?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I do have some questions, and you may or may not be able to answer these.
Right.
But if you can't answer them, maybe you can give me direction to where I can find the answer. I know when I buy a gallon of gas, I think there's federal and state taxes collected. I'm not sure what percentage is state, what percentage is federal, because I'm there buying gas. I do know that maybe 10 years ago, there was a increase in gas taxes. It was supposed to be temporary. It's still in effect. I guess my question is, in Stanley County, of all the gallons of gas that's bought, what amount would the state taxes that go toward road maintenance be collected in Stanley County? And then the second part of that would be, how much of that money do we get back in road improvements? And you may have the answer, you may not.
Right. Well, I can speak to it partially, and may have to get a little clarity from our folks in Raleigh, and I'll be happy to do that and provide it back to the board. But basically, our gas tax, it's not actually collected at the pump, at the individual pump. Our gas tax is collected at the depot when it's loaded onto the tanker to head out, and that's partially so that it's less easy to thwart the collection process. So if that tanker drops off fuel at 2 or 3 different locations inside and outside the county, it's hard to say exactly how much gas tax was paid by that. We can extrapolate based on the number of people in the county and the total amount of revenue and come up with a number from that standpoint, which is, for any individual county, is the recommended way to look at it, because since it's done at the depot and not at the individual point of sale. So based on that, last year a little over $2 billion was collected through gas tax, and if you take the population of Stanley County versus the population of the state to develop the percentage of population for Stanley and multiply that back through that $2 billion, it comes out to roughly $9 million for the county, and that's a very rough figure. If you want something more precise, so we can turn our folks loose in Raleigh to tighten that number up. And with that, we have our resurfacing programs, our actual maintenance programs, and then our spot safety programs, and our strategic transportation improvement program, which is our bigger projects, and our bridge replacement projects. And when we push all that back, then Stanley County is either break even or slightly a gain. And like I said, it's a rough number.
Appreciate your response, and I appreciate what you do in your job and all the other folks that work locally. I guess the reason, I don't know, that may not be the reason that you're here tonight, but I attended a meeting recently with another commissioner, Commissioner Eford, and the first thing we got after we let them know we were commissioners was, how can we get our East Main Street repaved? And it's absolutely awful, and you know, I drive it a lot, and sometimes when you drive it a lot, you tend to forget how bad it really is. Mm-hmm. But coming in tonight, I come up East Main, and the potholes that are there are for the manholes are below the surface, the pavement's above the surface. When you repave them, I don't know that it will fix that. But that is a real issue, East Main in particular. But I guess my other question right now, how many road maintenance projects do we have going on in Stanley County, and what type of projects do we have going on right now?
Road maintenance projects would be, well, so I guess my question back would be, or I would like to couch my answer, I guess would be what I'd rather say. Road maintenance wise, we have our shoulder crew working every day, clipping shoulders. We have our mowing crews mowing every day. We have our pipe crews replacing pipe every day in the county. Our resurfacing program is kicking back up because we've now hit the threshold for weather. So, on the maintenance side, those are the nuts and bolts that are going on every day. As far as specifically how many, generally a pipe or two a day. Right. We'll have the resurfacing contractor will have multiple routes on a single contract, and we typically have 2 contracts per county, because any residual funds we have, we go ahead and tie that into another contract, because we want to get those dollars on the street, resurfacing roadways as quick as we can. And then they may spread out. They may be patching, they'll have a crew doing their patch work and a crew doing their paving work and another crew doing their shoulder work. So typically you'll have, a resurfacing contractor will have 2 or 3 folks, 2 or 3 different crews working at a time to knock out their part of their contract.
Do we have 2 or 3 projects going on from repaving?
From the resurfacing, I would have to check with our resident engineer to see if they're working currently or if they've not kicked back in yet. I can check with that and be glad to circle back with y'all about that.
One other question I have, I know Division 10, and I was looking at a report recently, and I'm trying to remember the number of projects that Division 10, our division, has for 2018-19. But I also looked at other divisions of similar size, and they have more projects than Division 10 has by, I'm not going to say 2 times, but a considerable amount more than what Division 10 has. And I don't understand how that kind of calculates.
Right. And I'm probably not the best person to answer that question. So what I would be happy to bring some information back to the group for that, as far as back through the clerk. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. And the thing that I want you or our DOT to hear is Stanley County, we're not getting all these nice glamorous roads that Mecklenburg gets, but Mecklenburg's roads aren't great either, because I was over in Charlotte in the last week. They got potholes over there too. But I'm concerned as a citizen of Stanley County and as a citizen of North Carolina that our roads are not in great shape. And I don't know what it's going to take to get our roads in better shape. And I know y'all are working as hard as you can, but I'd love to know who we need to talk to try to put the importance of state-maintained roads. They need to be in real good shape.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to mention one small item about our resurfacing. When Main Street is resurfaced, we will adjust the manholes, and it'll be we'll mill the roadway and adjust all of those out, and we will make sure that is taken care of. That is a focus of ours with our resurfacing program, is that we get a good quality resurfacing product. The second is we get a smooth ride. So those will be addressed. Understood.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Tim, you may not be able to answer this, or I guess it's maybe just a comment. I know that several years ago, following the General Assembly, they took some action. We used to, in the state, had a transfer out of the Highway Trust Fund to support the general fund. And I know that the General Assembly, I'm fairly certain, has stopped that in maybe the last 2 or 3 budget cycles. So certainly, Commissioner Lawhon, hopefully more of those gas tax dollars that should be coming here are actually coming to us and not being used for other funds. Do you have any knowledge on that?
Brett, you got any knowledge on that?
I do believe you're correct. I believe that trend had slowed down in terms of, the borrowing from the Highway Trust Fund. But I can't tell you for sure.
Okay.
We'll verify that.
I have one question, maybe 2, Mr. Chairman. Do you know how many miles of resurfacing is planned for Stanley County this resurfacing season?
I can give you a quick calculation. That was one item that I didn't pull up. Oh, I locked the computer up. There we go. So with resurfacing and preservation,
Yes, sir.
okay. We should be looking at around 46 miles touched this year, maybe slightly more than that. But,
And a rule of thumb, what's the cost to resurface?
on average, our resurfacing runs around $125,000 a mile. Our preservation is less expensive. So when you add the two together, it's around $100,000 total per mile.
Thank you. Any other questions?
We do have one item that we would like to bring to the board.
Sure.
Brett, would you like to?
So we wanted to,
I don't know if it's on.
yeah, it's on here. Something we wanted to bring to the board's attention is a situation that we're evaluating right now near Aquadale. It's a small single-lane bridge on Bethlehem Church Road. It's over Long Creek. It's near a rendering plant, and I believe that's a Stay-Light quarry. We're required to inspect our bridges biannually, and each time our bridges are assessed and inspected, they sort of get like this punch list of items that need to occur, and we would generally go out and take care of the bridge to get it back to where it should be, and most of the time the items are fairly minor. In this case, this particular bridge, it's got some age on it. It's a single lane bridge. I believe it's a timber pile structure, which means it has a lot of spans across that creek. It's a sizable opening. So the bridge was already posted for light traffic, and we had to reduce the weight limits again very recently, just because of the age and the deterioration of the bridge. And where we're at today is we're looking at possibly spending $500,000 to kind of keep this bridge alive, so to speak, limping along. To replace that bridge, it's going to be just under $3 million. And third option would be to completely remove the bridge and essentially abandon it. And that's going to cost us about $300,000. And we wanted to bring this up tonight while we're here. Thought it'd be a good opportunity to put it in front of you folks. Essentially, it's akin to a roadway abandonment, where we would likely need a resolution of support from the county commissioners if we were to go the route of completely removing that structure, removing it from the state highway system, and essentially cul-de-sacing the roads that approach it. We've talked to the fire chief locally, and the emergency responders don't use that bridge. It actually is a dividing line between two emergency response areas. School system doesn't use it. We have a count of 200 cars per day that are using it, but we haven't. That's not a hard count. I think that's an estimated number. And point being, it's not used that much. And wanted to get this in front of you, informational purposes. What we kind of plan to do is I'd like to get kind of a feel for what you guys are thinking, if it's something you think you could support or couldn't support. Potentially, we would also take it through a public hearing process where we would seek input from the local community, just to get a feel for, the local officials and the local community's thoughts on this bridge. But I don't know if you have any comments or questions about it tonight. Otherwise, we can bring it back to you at a future date.
Any questions, comments from the board?
Chairman.
I do too.
Commissioner Lawhon?
The road, Bethlehem Church Road, after you cross the bridge, where does it go?
Where does it go? If you're traveling, I guess that's west, ties back in past the rendering plant. Trying to think of the name of the road. Barbie's Grove?
On the upper side.
There at the rendering plant.
Yeah.
And that's what Prince Road that comes out there. Side of it.
Ultimately works over to 138.
Is it 138, Dusty? So I pulled an aerial up, and the computer's a little bit slow. It's trying. There's the quarry I mentioned. I think it's on down below that, isn't it? There it is. So this is the bridge structure we're talking about. Yeah, it says Rocky River. It's a fork. It's long branch, Long Creek. Yeah, Barbie's Grove and 138 on the other side, I think.
If you scroll on out.
What are you looking for?
Where it ties, where 1917 ties back into something else. Right there.
Yeah,
See, it comes back to 138.
yeah, all the way back to 138.
And we talked to the folks at the rendering plant, since they were the closest stakeholder to the facility that we're talking about, and they indicated that they have all their drivers go back out and actually go all the way out to the intersection that we were just looking at, because they had the best sight distance for the trucks and the road. It's more conducive to their vehicles. So, we did want to reach out to them right off the bat. And then, of course, we talked, as Brett mentioned, we talked to the fire chief, and it does happen to be a dividing line.
I think I had Commissioner Flint was next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is the current weight limit on that bridge? You said you just lowered it.
Yeah, we did. I think down to 1519.
That's correct.
So a fire truck couldn't go across it anyway.
Correct.
Not supposed to.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't if it's over
Yeah,
19 tons.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Louder?
Well, that was actually the question I was going to ask about it. And prior to it being lowered this time, probably the trucks were overweight then.
I don't know what, historically what that bridge weight limits have been, but I don't know if you can see your screen. I mean, just a quick look at this bridge on the street view, Google Street View there.
Now, you know the teenagers bleed their ghosts down there.
They
Just want to make you aware of that.
Okay. I did not know that. Didn't have that local lore. But it's a very narrow bridge, as you can see. So I don't think a lot of trucks were using it. I personally wouldn't drive one across it. Yeah.
April 14th. Commissioner Morgan, I think you had another question.
Yeah, I just you said it was 300. Where's the screen? Where it was 350,000 to 300,000 or 500,000 to
Yeah.
rebuild.
No,
So
well-
basically, you're talking 200,000. How long, if you rebuild it?
Yeah.
What is the lifespan of that rebuild?
And when we say rebuild, I mean, it's due to the nature of that bridge, it's it's a superstructure rebuild, and it's really only going to be a partial superstructure rebuild. So that's kind of like the girders and the deck and the rail, and that's it. But the only way to access it is across the bridge itself to do the work. So you're still going to have this single lane bridge. It would be kind of a best guess on what that would do to that life expectancy of the structure. I mean, it would certainly extend it, and we could probably continue to use it under those current load restrictions for, I would venture to say 10, 15, 20 years. That's depending upon, the condition of some of those other girders that are under there and how quickly they deteriorate from the point where they are now.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, how many one-lane bridges, wood structures do we still have in Stanley County?
That'd be another one we'll have to get back with you.
Not many.
Maybe make a note.
There's actually, our bridge replacement program has grown over the years, and we've actually replaced a lot of those older wooden structures, 1 or 2 spans. This one's just unique because it's multiple spans across that long opening across that river.
It doesn't, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. It doesn't appear there's any residences on either side of that
That's correct.
that have to cross that bridge directly. Just use it for a shortcut, probably.
I would mention that with the 300,000, that includes, that estimate includes removing the concrete structures out in the middle of the river. Because right now, with the multiple spans, there are structures across the river and in the river, and they collect drift and things like that we go pull out on a regular basis. And with that, we would, that cost would be to remove all of that so that it would free flow and wouldn't have to worry about the drift collection and things like that. So kind of restore that little stretch right there.
And that's all in that $300,000.
That's correct.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I appreciate all you do for us.
Absolutely.
Item 2, presentation of the Senior Center Satellite Study. Presenters Jessica Hill and Katie
Kutcher.
Kutcher. Want to make sure I got that right. Thank you for being here.
All right, so while Jessica is pulling that up, good evening, everyone. I am Katie Kutcher. This is Jessica Hill. We are both with the Central Carolina Council of Governments, which you may also hear referred to as COG from time to time again. COG, of course, is a regional organization serving 9 counties in the greater Charlotte region, of course, including Stanley County. And we are very thankful for Stanley County's continued support and involvement with COG. So tonight we're here to talk to you about some findings from the Stanley County Senior Center analysis. So in late 2017, Central Carolina Council of Governments was contacted by Stanley County Senior Center to assist them with really an investigation and looking into how they're meeting the needs of older adults in the community currently and opportunities to maybe expand services in the future to meet the need of the growing older adult population in Stanley County. So as you'll see, the purpose was to investigate the need for additional senior services and programs in Stanley County and to make recommendations for expansion of services if needed. So in order to do that, we kind of compiled a report for you all. I think you received a copy in your agenda packet. And so that includes an analysis of the demographics for Stanley County. It included public engagement, events and survey development, a review of the current services offered, and then a peer comparison with other senior centers across the state of North Carolina. So we actually looked at 5 other counties in order to make those recommendations. So just a little background information about senior centers. So senior centers really do offer services, supports, and activities that help these residents age in place. So it's improving the quality of life and also really helping them access those services and supports that they need to stay healthy as long as they can and remain in the community. So senior centers really are an investment to serve the residents of your county. So, that being said, we wanted to start off and really give recognition where recognition is due. We have Becky Weemhoff in the house tonight, so we want to give her a shout out and recognize the existing Stanley County Senior Center. So, of course, the one on North 3rd Street in Albemarle. And really want to point out to everyone that this senior center is recognized as a center of excellence by the North Carolina Division of Aging and Adult Services. And that is no easy task. So in order to be certified as a center of excellence, they really do go through a certification process. And that includes requirements regarding programming, staff training, outreach in the community, advocacy, and more. So they're really doing a fantastic job there. And we wanted to highlight the existing services. So Becky compiled just a short, this is I think a condensed list of some of the many programs and services offered at the existing center. So you can see that there's a myriad of activities, not only activities but also services. So individuals may call for information referral services. Where do I go to access services? They may access transportation services, in-home aid, the senior nutrition program through Stanley County Senior Services through the senior center as well. So it's really just a fabulous resource for the older adults in this community.
All right, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about what we did through the process of looking at the analysis. And first, we wanted to understand some population trends that Stanley County is experiencing alongside the greater state. So as you can see in the table, this is data from the North Carolina Office of State Budget and Management. And highlighted in those red boxes are the percent population of 60 plus and older. And as you can see, the Stanley County has a greater percentage of senior adults than the state of North Carolina in general. In 2020, that gap is about 3.4%, but by 2037, you're looking at almost 6% difference between Stanley County's 60-plus population or proportion in comparison to North Carolina. And also the map, the map is your current users of Stanley County. So there are 2,436 users, 2,032 reside within Stanley County. Of those, 1,316 users are within a 5-mile radius, and I'll get more into why this matters in just a moment. So that's roughly about 65%, and then an additional 500 users reside within a 10-mile radius, so that's about 75%. You have a few folks traveling from outside of Stanley County to use the center in Albemarle. So when we looked at, when we wanted to understand if the senior center needed to be expanded, and by expanded I mean either in its current footprint or through a satellite or additional facilities, physical facilities. So we looked at it from two options. This is kind of a status quo operating within the way it currently operates in the center in Albemarle. And then an expand, a build scenario, which would involve the expansion of senior services to another facility or facilities. And when we looked at those two options, we decided there really needs to be three criteria that we look at it from. One is proximity, so the nearness to your senior population. The second was accessibility by the senior population, their ability to get to that facility and participate in the activities. And then also making sure that we're meeting the needs of the senior population through those services, activities, and programs that are offered. So criteria one, that proximity question. The map shows you the density, which is senior population of 65 and plus per acre within those census tracts. So your senior population, or the density right now in 2010, highest concentration is sitting in the census tracts near the city of Albemarle. You also have some high concentrations in Locust area, Oakboro, Norwood, and Baden. Now, as part of our analysis, we did an open house, or 2 open house events, one in Locust and one in Norwood. The center, or the open house in Locust, drew 50 people. The one in Norwood had 18 participants. But we also, so during those events, they were able to get information about what the Senior Center does, and also participate in a paper survey asking them about current usage of the Senior Center and also what they were wanting in a future potential Senior Center. That survey was also online, and it was handed out through partnerships and other organizations that the Senior Center works with through and now. And it was also advertised in the media, radio, and newspaper. And that actually had really great participation. You had over 423 folks participate in that survey. And so what we heard from them is that of the people, of those participants, 53% of them don't currently participate in the Senior Center programs. And the primary reason for that, over 77%, is the distance to that facility, is their main deterrent. Another issue of the criteria to delve deeper into that distance to a Senior Center, we asked them how far would they be willing to travel to a facility, and overwhelmingly, almost nearly 50% said they'd be willing to travel up to 5 miles to get to a Senior Center, and an additional 30% said they'd be willing to travel up to 10 miles. And so the table below that graph shows you distances from community to community. So as you can see, Albemarle right now only serves the city of Albemarle within that 5-mile radius. And then within the 10 miles, you pick up Baden and New London, but all other communities are outside that kind of 10-mile radius where you're getting that the 30% and then the 50% in the 5 miles. So that's a consideration when you think of distance for seniors to travel. Another is the changing population. So between 2000 and 2010, where were seniors locating, or where were they living? And so as you can see in the map, the red is a loss of senior population. And the darker the green is where there's higher growth or population change in those locations. So in the census tracts around Albemarle, you're seeing a loss of that senior population, or at least the proportion is growing and getting smaller. But the growth of the senior population is kind of concentrated in the southwest and southeast, and then your northwest corners of the county. And then when we think about accessibility, how are people being able to access the center? We're looking at it from mobility, from poverty standpoint. Are they able to get to the center in Albemarle versus, via different transportation if they can't drive? You have SCUSA that provides on-demand services. Also, walking, or VTS, Volunteer Transportation Services, is another useful program that offers rides to senior adults and disabilities. But accessibility is the extent to which the senior population can access the senior center. And so according to the 2016 American Community Survey, 5.8 to 7.5% of the population locus over 65 years and older lived in poverty, while 8.7 to 10.8% of that population lived in poverty in Norwood. But Albemarle continues to have the higher concentration of seniors living in poverty at about 15.4%. So that is one other thing to think about. And then when we asked people that took the survey, would you ever participate in Stanley County Senior Center activities? If they answered yes, what needs to happen to make that be possible? And again, it's a distance. It comes down to distance and proximity. It needs to be located closer to them. So when we looked at the third criteria, the services, programs, and activities, we looked at so the Senior Center does a yearly survey of users and non-users, And so we looked at the past year's surveys to understand what services, programs, and activities were most used. And those included exercise and social classes, monthly luncheons, SHIP and tax aid programs, and the HCCBG services. And right now, Stanley County Senior Center does have an advisory board that takes into consideration new requests from that survey. So if you had a senior population came and on that survey said, we want racquetball added to senior center services, staff would look at that, look at all those lists of new activities, services, and programs that were desired by your population, filter it a little bit, and then bring it to the Board of Advisors, and then that is the process that you would add new services, activities, and programs to the senior center. So there is a current process to add those new programs. What we heard in the survey, it reflects very closely to what you in the previous surveys were asked for: more exercise and social classes, education and training classes such as computer programming, or not computer programming, basic computer skills, excuse me. Support groups like diabetes, what were some other ones?
Maybe
Nutrition, Alzheimer's, yes, correct. And then the SHIP and tax aid programs were some of the more desired activities. So this table is a very high-level comparison of all those criteria rolled into a very simple format of looking at it from a low, medium, and high perspective. Based off of each of the communities in Stanley County. So your rate of senior population growth, your highest communities are going to be Baden, Locust, Meisenheimer, Red Cross, and Richfield. Your population density, again, the senior 65 and plus by acre, that is going to be Albemarle as your that center of concentration. And also similar with the poverty level, Albemarle is the cluster. And then the distance to your current senior center based off of road miles to that is basically over 5 miles, which is that 50% cutoff of most seniors are willing to travel. So I'm going to hand it back to Katie, and she's going to talk a little bit about what we saw in the peer comparisons.
Okay, so this next table is really just kind of a high-level grid that is really showing you the different counties that we looked at when we were conducting the peer comparison. So you'll see some of the items that are listed here, takes a look at the county population, the population of older adults by county, and also what we call the senior center type. So in this case, if it's listed as public, it means it is affiliated with the county government. And you'll see we only included one nonprofit senior center, but it was because they were very similar as far as the services that they provided. And then the far right column shows you how many centers they actually have serving the county. So some of the additional details that are found in the report has information regarding things such as hours of operation, some of the funding sources utilized, square footage, and more. And some of the trends that we saw from conducting the peer comparison would be it's very common to develop partnerships between counties and then the local municipalities as far as finding maybe some shared sites to hold for those secondary locations. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So it might be called a satellite location, for example. And also another common theme we saw was co-locating the senior nutrition programs with additional senior center locations. So that kind of brings us to our recommendations. So I will say one thing that we did find, of course, also from that peer comparison, is it's very clear that each county has the opportunity to, respond to the unique needs of their own county and their residents and develop their senior center network accordingly. So we really did see different models. But based on all of the information from our findings, we do recommend expanding services. Certainly there's a need based on the growing older adult population, also based on the demand from those individuals who participated in the surveys and in the open houses. And so the recommendation would be that there is a need for additional physical locations to provide senior services to the residents of Stanley County. And based on the evaluation criteria that Jessica just reviewed, some of the potential locations that kind of bubble to the surface would be Locust and Norwood. So for Locust, the area surrounding the community of Locust is one of the fastest growing and highest concentration of older adults. A facility in this general location could potentially serve other communities nearby that are within that 5-mile driving distance that Jessica was talking about. That's really that desired distance, right, to really increase participation. And so some of the other communities that could be served by a location there include Oakboro, Red Cross, and Stanfield. And then, of course, looking at Norwood, the area surrounding the community of Norwood is also fast-growing and has a higher concentration of senior adults. A facility in this general location would provide services to those older adults living in that area. So those two definitely bubble to the surface. Now, when we take a look at expansion options and models, they're listed here really starting with, I guess, the less time-intensive and less resources-intensive to implement to really taking more time-intensive, more resources to be able to implement. So the first thing that you'll see listed here just says expand through the existing senior center. So by that, we're referring to some of those programs and services. For example, Jessica mentioned the SHIP program, or the Seniors Health Insurance Information Program. So who doesn't need help with figuring out Medicare, right? It's very complicated. So SHIP is a wonderful resource. That could be an option of doing some targeted, providing that service in targeted communities based on the areas of need and interest. So rather than just hosting those SHIP counseling at the current senior center, identifying some of these potential locations and actually offering some of those services at different locations. The next item listed you see is called a developing senior center. This is a model recognized by the Division of Aging and Adult Services. It's eligible to receive some funding for up to 3 years operating in this manner, really only operating 16 hours per week. The next option would be a satellite senior center. So satellite senior centers, again, recognized by the North Carolina Division of Aging and Adult Services, looking at operating around 24 hours a week, and then all the way up to maybe a secondary multi-purpose senior center, fully functioning, full-time, 40 hours a week senior center. So that kind of shows the options. And also to mention, it could be possible to implement more than one of these. So maybe one location might be interested in developing a secondary location, senior center, and maybe another area of the county that has been identified as a high need might have some targeted outreach and services delivered in that county, if that makes sense. So those would be some of those options. In addition, just some other recommendations. We did find through the surveys there are requests for additional services, programs, and activities. We also found, of course, some of the individuals who participated in the surveys aren't currently utilizing the center. So they're interested in some of those existing services, but having them in closer to their own location. And then also looking for opportunities for additional outreach and communication. So we talked about this wonderful resource that you have in the county. We want to make sure that as many older adults know about the services and can access them as possible. So looking at doing some targeted outreach to really increase participation for those who might not be taking advantage of the services at this time. Let's see. So also just want to mention, Jessica mentioned the process that the Senior Center has in place currently for evaluating different kind of input from the Senior Center participants or non-Senior Center participants. So it's expected that they would be able to handle these recommendations in that same way through utilizing their staff and their advisory board, really looking at feasibility, of course, looking to see are these kind of suggestions already being offered by other organizations such as Parks and Recreation, going through all of that process to identify what they could implement, what changes they could implement to best meet the needs of the older adults in Stanley County. And I think, that being said, we can pause for questions. I do want to just take another moment to thank Becky and her staff for all of their assistance with distributing the surveys, helping us get the word out for the open houses. We were really pleased with the participation. So definitely a lot of interest in getting some additional services across the county here.
Thank you for that presentation. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Comments, questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 3, E911 public hearing to consider naming Crawford Austin Lane. Presenter Karen McDaniel, our 911 director.
Hello, I also have with me Lisa Mabry, our database coordinator. In case there are some questions that I wouldn't be able to answer, she is currently in training for her position, so I'm trying to help her out and show her what she has to do when we have roads. The purpose today, of course, is for us to hold a public hearing to be able to name a private drive off of Old Cottonville Road. And just a couple of notes, you do have the packet of information in front of you. We did go through and look at 5 different names in order to name this property. Only 2 of the names that were submitted to us at first qualified for our road naming. And then when we sent out letters to property owners, we came back with a tie with just 2 property owners voting, and those were for Cigar Lane and Red Lane. We sent back out letters to 2 other property owners that had not submitted a vote, hoping we could get information in and break our tie. We received in that, when we asked for that vote, we received information from one of the property owners that wanted to submit a different name for the road. We accepted that submission of that name, sent letters back out again for a revote, came back with a tie again. So we called together the address committee. We met, and the address committee, after talking, decided on Crawford Austin. So I would like for you guys to hold a public hearing to hear any comments and make a decision for what we would name this road.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. McDaniel? All right, I'll declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone here wishing to speak for or against the renaming, or the naming of this road? Will come on forward and state your name and share with us your thoughts.
Well, my name's Donnie Smith. I guess they naming the road, having to name the road because we bought the property, going to split it up between our kids, and that's going to put an extra house on the road. My son went around, got the names from the neighbors, turned them in. There was 2 people to vote, nobody else voted, and that another neighbor on the road said that he wanted a short name also. Instead of having to fill out mail every time, it's going to be Austin Crawford. They was wanting something shorter, and I just wondering why. The letter said you have 10 days to respond, or the county will name the road for you. Nobody, 2 of them didn't respond. Then they sent letters out a second time, and then, not trying to be ugly, I just want to know why that happened. We was prompting to send ours back in whenever it come to us.
Is that, Karen, can you address that for us?
Yes, sir. We did send out additional letters because we wanted it to be fair. We wanted the people that own property on that driveway to have a say in what it was named. And because we had a tie vote, we felt it was fair to send out encouragement to get people to respond.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you just had a lack of a participation on the first round?
Right.
Okay. Does that answer your question, sir?
I guess, I mean, that's what I was wanting to know, I mean.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Anyone for or against this? Yes, sir, come on forward.
My name's Adam Stott, and I own property down there too, or I bought property down there. And I just don't know how it happened either, because he come by, wanted to know names. We all gave our names. So why even ask if, if they didn't want to put it on there then? Why'd they turn in a name? That just don't make no sense to me. And so it was 3 times. We voted 3 times. First time, that they said nobody sent nothing in. All right, second time, me and him voted, and I guess they threw that one out. I don't know. That's just what I just want to know what happened there on the second time voting, because there was 3 times voted for. So I was just wanting to know an answer to that.
Aaron, Will.
Okay, on the first, again, on the first time we sent out letters for the 2 road names, we only received 2 responses. One was for Cigar Lane and the other one was for Red Lane.
So you had a tie vote then, 1-1.
We had a tie vote, yes. So we did send out an additional letter trying to encourage the other 2 property owners to vote. We received 1 reply back within the allotted time frame, and that reply came back and it was the reply that said they wanted to offer an additional name on the road. They gave reasoning for not wanting Cigar Lane, and they didn't say anything about Red, but proposed the Crawford Austin Road. And it was after we had sent those letters out that we did receive another vote in the mail, but we had already sent out the additional letters. It came to us late. We had already sent out additional letters with the Crawford Austin. And so when those letters came back, we had 2 votes for Red and 2 votes for Crawford Austin.
So if I understand the timeline for myself and other commissioners, we had a tie vote on the first round. Second round, you had a tie vote, but with one of them coming in late, and you had already sent out paperwork for the 3rd round. And on the 3rd round, you had the most votes for Crawford Austin.
We had
It was a
2
tie
votes. We
then.
had another tie, 2 votes for Red, 2 votes for Crawford Austin, and then we pulled together the address committee, and we had discussion on the 2 road names, and we decided to name it Crawford Austin.
Okay. Commissioner Lawhon, do you have a question?
I do. Karen, the letters I'm looking at in the book, Red Lane, look, I counted, I think there's 3 votes for Red Lane. Is that correct?
The 3rd vote that came in on the 2nd, when we sent out letters encouraging everybody to vote, we had gotten back the letter with the proposal of Crawford Austin, and we had not received the other vote. The other vote came in after we made the decision to send out the proposal for the Crawford Austin. So it was we'd already sent that out, and that vote came in late.
So had you received that letter prior to your cutoff, and I'm not sure what your cutoff date would have been, your committee would have seen there were 3 votes for Red Lane, 2 votes for Austin.
Well, if we had gotten 3 votes for Red Lane, we had 1 vote for Cigar Lane, and if we had gotten the 2 votes for Red Lane, because the 3rd one was the Crawford Austin, we would have gone with Red, because we would have had those votes, and even though we had another proposal for a name, we would have had 2 votes, which would have been the majority for Red Lane. One was late, yes, and we had already sent out the new proposed name.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Evers.
which one was late? The Crawford Austin or the Red?
Red Lane.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize, it does get a little confusing.
Mr., is it Stipe?
Yeah,
pronounce it?
Stipe. Adams.
I see your vote is for Red Lane, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Smith, your vote was for Red Lane? Yes, sir. Is that correct?
So short and simple.
And there was a third vote somewhere that came in late.
They came in late with our second set of letters where we were encouraging votes so we could try to break that tie.
Okay. All right. Does that answer your questions? I think we've got some questions ourselves.
Okay.
Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
I would like to speak. That's my dad. He's going to divide the land between me and my brother. Let me start. My name's Austin Smith. Me and my brother both going to build a house back there. He's going to build it at a later date. But I'm the reason the road has to be named from the get-go. I'm the one that went around to all the neighbors to get the initial 5 names. My problem is, what was the point of having a 10-day cutoff and not honoring that 10-day cutoff? Whether or not 2 people didn't vote or 2 people did, the 2 people that voted and it was a tie, then they should have went with one of them 2 names instead of the second go around letting somebody submit a whole new name. If they wanted to submit that name, they should have submitted that on the first go around, in my opinion. What's the point in having a 10-day cutoff if you're not going to honor it?
Andy, if you'd like to. County Manager, sorry.
I would just say, Commissioners, if you'll remember, there's been several times in the past where we've done the cutoff, we've held the public hearing, people come up that didn't respond as part of the cutoff, and you all kicked it back to us and said, do it again because these people have come forward. So staff has tried to work with folks and try to be sensitive to the fact that some people don't respond. And so we do everything we can to try to keep there from being I don't want to say an argument, but just, you have all this coming to you all. We try to make it as smooth as possible. And I know it doesn't work, and I know there's frustration. This process is probably one of the most frustrating processes I go through. It seems fairly trivial in everything we do, in a $60 million budget, but it creates problems for folks because it's their address and it's their road name, and I get it. So I will just say in context, staff has tried to work with folks and try to give people the benefit of the doubt because we've done these public hearings before and people who didn't get it in by the cutoff came, complained, and you all said, well, let's do it again. And so we try to keep that in mind and do it again so that we keep that away from you. I will also say that the committee we had conversations, Red Lane, Crawford, Austin. Really what it came down to is we understand, having lived here for 10 plus years, and I know people lived here longer than that, but there's a lot of people on the committee who've lived here all their life. And certainly heritage is a big deal for Stanley County. And so there were folks that from what we could gather, who'd lived on that land in the past, or Crawford or Austin, I'm not quite sure which one it was. And so we tried to keep that in mind as we made a decision of what to name that road, to be sensitive to the heritage of that area and that piece of land based on who had lived there at some point on that land at some point in the past. And so that's really where we got to Crawford Austin, just trying to respect the heritage, because I know that's important to folks in Stanley County, having lived here for some time and interacted with folks. So at the end of the day, we just need a road name. As staff, that's what we did because we were trying to respect the heritage. But if this board wants to name it something else, we just need a road name. So it's really, certainly not going to offend staff if you all go a different direction.
Comments?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a comment. I have no idea who's on that committee. I'd like to know.
The county manager, myself, Karen McDaniel, Michael Sandy, our planning director, our E911 database coordinator, Ms. Mabry, and there was one other.
The assistant director, however, we had a telecommunicator that sat in.
Because the assistant director had passed.
One question.
Commissioner Morgan.
Is there any family members from Crawford Austin still on that road? If this is what we're going off of?
Karen, do you want to address that question, please?
Yes, sir. There is a family that was Crawford. She's married to Austin. So yes, there is a family member on that road.
Commissioner
One more
Long.
question, Mr. Chairman. Is that lady the one that said her father died from cancer and she didn't want it to be named Cigar Road? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Does that answer your question somewhat?
We're talking about respect for everybody that lives on the land. I'm going to be living there for the rest of my life because I'm not planning on ever building again. And to me, that name is pretty much just for that one family on that road. It don't have anything to do with anybody else. And I understand, I'm sorry that her father passed from that. And I don't care if we name it something completely different. But I don't agree with that being an option for the road name since it was not one of the first 5 submitted. That's my problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
No, thank you.
I got a question for him.
Commissioner Eford, sorry.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Austin Smith?
Austin Smith, and you voted for Red Lane?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else out there wishing to speak for or against this name? Commissioner Morgan.
Chairman Burles, I'd like to make,
Hang on. Let me close this if you're going to make a motion. Anyone else out there wishing to speak for or against this? All right, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed. Commissioner Morgan.
I'd like to make a motion that we officially name the road Red Lane.
Got a motion from Commissioner Morgan to name the road Red Lane. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Lawhon. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank y'all. Item 4, National Day of Prayer Resolution. Commissioner Lawhon, presenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The National Day of Prayer has been designated on May 3rd, 2018, and this marks the 67th consecutive observance of the National Day of Prayer that was mandated by both the U.S. Congress and our President in Public Law in 100-307. And I'm going to go ahead and continue to read this resolution if it's okay.
Yes, sir.
And whereas the Prayer for America Unite is the theme for 2018 National Day of Prayer, and Lord, we need that, unite. Amen to that. And whereas a National Day of Prayer has been part of our country's heritage since the first one was declared by the Continental Congress in 1775, and whereas leaders of our nation and the Stanley County community have relied upon the power of prayer throughout our history, now therefore we, the Stanley County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May 3rd, 2018 as the Day of Prayer in Stanley County, North Carolina, and urge our citizens to join together in their homes, places of work, places of worship to pray for the unity of the hearts of all mankind and to continue in prayer for our state and our nation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawhon. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Eford.
make a motion we approve the resolution as presented.
Got a motion from Commissioner Eford, second from Vice Chairman McIntyre, I think I heard. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner Lawhon. Item 5, Community Nursing Home Advisory Committee appointments. Presenter, Andy Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. You have in your packet a request to reappoint Johnny Woodward, Johnny Harris, and Sherry Poplin for a 3-year term, and to appoint Rick Russell to replace Charlene Tippett for a 3-year term to expire February 28, 2021. And so I believe Mr. Russell's application is in your packet. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for County Manager?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Swain?
I move to accept the aforementioned people to their respective terms that the county manager mentioned.
Got a motion, do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Morgan. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. All right, item 6 was actually item 1. GHA Autism Supports presentations, presenters Beth Oliveri and Dee Hanky Thompson. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Sorry we moved our meeting time on you.
Well, we're very sorry. We're very embarrassed. Sorry.
Glad to have y'all now.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. Good evening. My name is Beth Oliveri, and I serve as the Chief Development Officer for local nonprofit GHA Autism Supports. So with April being Autism Awareness Month, timing couldn't be better. GHA is celebrating 40 years of service to individuals with a primary diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. In the late 1970s, a group of local concerned parents met with Marie G. Smith, who served as the director of the Exceptional Children's Program with Albemarle City Schools at the time. After countless planning meetings, our organization was founded as the group home for the autistic. We started with one 5-bed children's home out on McNeil Road in Stanley County, and we operated on a budget of $78,000 per year. Today, since that time, we've grown to support over 90 individuals with autism and over 25 different programs, and we currently have a budget of $10 million. We employ approximately 250 people locally, and which makes GHA number 14 on Stanley County's list of top employers. I think it's also important to note that we host annually visitors from all over the world, from Japan, Denmark, Germany, and many others, to share our approaches in working with people with autism to help them reach their fullest potential. So when we were founded in 1978, our autism rates were reported as 1 in 10,000 births, whereas today the CDC reports that nationwide 1 in 68 children have some form of autism. Also, a recent study in North Carolina reported that 1 in 59 individuals have been diagnosed with some form of autism, representing about 65,000 residents in North Carolina. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dee, who serves as our Chief Strategy Officer.
Good evening to everyone. Again, thank you so much for having us. Just to reiterate what Beth has shared with you, to make it quick and simple and give you something to take back and share and with everyone, I have packets of information that contain information as kind of our Autism 101 fact sheet, as well as our GHA brochure, our Carolina Farms program. I'm looking around and I see many familiar faces that have actually visited our Carolina Farms program, as well as one of our Second Street Sundries brochure. Hopefully you have had an opportunity to come in Second Street Sundries, have a cup of coffee, sit down with a friend, conduct a meeting, as well as, but our biggest mission with Second Street Sundries is to provide opportunities for individuals with a primary diagnosis within autism spectrum to have competitive employment, and we're doing just that. So I'm going to pass these out to you, as well as a wonderful lapel with our autism awareness, our signature logo, and we welcome any questions to you.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Evers?
I'm sorry, I don't have a question, but Beth and Dee, thank y'all so much for what you guys do, and Dawn, from the farm to the Second Street Sundries. It's a great program.
Thank you. It's
a great program, and I certainly appreciate again what you do. And,
thank you.
And I can't say this, if Dee makes my day with her smile. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I've visited the farm before, and it's a great place to visit. How many people, I know the ones that live there work there at the farm.
Mm-hmm.
How many employees are there at the farm?
Well, we have 18 people. We have 3 6-bed homes at Carolina Farms, and then
We have a number of people that live at our other programs in Stanley County that go and work there daily. About how many would you?
And you said staffing, or you said participants in the program?
Participants, yeah.
Participants, so the 18 individuals that reside there, and at least 10 to 15 additional individuals that we provide supports to participate in farm-related activities.
And Mr. Chairman, I do want to make a comment. I'm familiar with GHA and what all you all do, and I applaud the efforts that y'all have done and continue to do. And the Second Street Sundries looks like it's a success. I know I took my grandkids out recently, and I said, I'm going to go buy you something. Where you want to go? And they want to go to Second Street Sundries.
Oh,
so
thank you.
they like the tech in there, I think. So
Thank you.
Any other comments? Good job. Thank y'all.
Thank you very
Thank y'all for
much.
coming. Thank y'all for taking time out to come.
Thank you for having us.
Thank y'all. All right, I believe we are down to our consent agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Got a motion from Vice Chairman McIntyre to approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Swain. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, motion carries 7-0. Public comment, is there, I didn't get a list. I don't think anyone signed up. Anyone wishing to speak to the board? Seeing none, we'll go to board comments. We'll start with Commissioner Lowder. No comment. Commissioner Eford?
No comment, sir.
Commissioner Swain?
No comment this evening, thank you.
Commissioner Morgan?
Only thing I have to say is out at the airport, Charlotte finally got the C-17s last Saturday, received their first two. They'll be getting a total of 8. You should start to see them fairly frequently, hopefully, around the airport. They were just out there the day before yesterday. So look forward to that and the improvements to come forth at the airport. It's going to be some big changes coming to Stanley County.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Lawhon?
I do have something. I know that's hard to believe, but I spoke with Jeff Branch, and Jeff, he talked about the Big Lick Bluegrass Festival that went on this past weekend. And he said it was a great event. And on Facebook, I was not in town, so I did not get to attend. I was at the beach, but while at the beach, I kept looking at Facebook, and I kept seeing aerial photos of the Big Lick Bluegrass Festival. A lot of things going on out there. It turned out great. There were people there from England, Canada, 4 people from Japan, and it was a well-attended festival. And it also put heads in our local hotel beds. It also put shoppers in our local retail merchants, restaurants. And I thank Jeff for his continued push to have the Big Lick Bluegrass Festival. I think he said there was probably over 1,000 people in attendance during the time that they had this particular festival. So thank you, Jeff. I urge you to continue to try to keep this festival growing, and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you for Commissioner Lawhon. Vice Chairman McIntyre?
No comment, sir.
All right. Well, I guess that leaves it to me. I'll just, I guess, kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Morgan was saying. I spoke to one of our employees out at the airport, seen him at an event Saturday night, and he was showing me a video of a C-17 and the touch and go that they did at the airport, and that's just a huge, huge plane. And we've got a massive project we're going to have to be looking at here in the next couple of years there at the airport, I guess, as far as the runway expansion and stuff to get ready for the C-17s. But, thank you, and our next meeting is Monday, May 14th at 6 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Vice Chairman McIntyre, second from Commissioner Morgan. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?